Burnout doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because something around you is designed to drain you. And the most dangerous part is that nobody tells you that. You're just handed more work, more pressure, more expectations, and when you finally collapse under the weight of all of it, the system looks at you and says, maybe you're just not cut out for this. That is the trick. That is how it works. They build the conditions for your breakdown, and then they hand you the blame for it. This isn't about one bad job or one nightmare boss. This is about a pattern, a widespread, deeply embedded way that modern workplaces are structured. Constant urgency, unclear expectations, workloads that never actually end. Emotional pressure dressed up as company culture. If you've been feeling exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix, disconnected from work that used to mean something to you, or like you're running on fumes but somehow still falling behind, you are not imagining it. And you are not failing. Something is happening to you, and it's time to understand exactly what that something is. The first thing you need to understand is that your exhaustion is not a character flaw. Somewhere along the way, you started treating your burnout like a personal weakness. Like if you were just tougher, more disciplined, more resilient, you could push through it. But here's what's actually happening. Your nervous system is responding rationally to an irrational environment. Chronic stress changes your brain chemistry. It disrupts sleep, kills motivation, flattens your emotions. That isn't a weakness. That is biology doing exactly what it's supposed to do when a threat doesn't go away. The problem isn't your threshold for hard work. The problem is that you've been asked to operate at maximum capacity with zero recovery time, indefinitely. Think about that. No machine runs that way without breaking down. You are not the exception. The second thing is that urgency in most workplaces is manufactured. Not all of it, but most of it. There is a specific dynamic at play where everything gets labeled urgent because urgency keeps people moving fast and asking fewer questions. When everything is on fire, you don't have time to look up and ask whether the fire was necessary. You just grab a bucket. Workplaces that run on manufactured urgency train you to stay in a constant state of low-grade panic, and panic is exhausting. It's cognitively expensive. It burns through your mental energy before noon. And then you sit there at 3 in the afternoon staring at your screen, wondering why you can't focus, and you assume something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You've been running on adrenaline since 8 a.m. That's not sustainable. That was never sustainable. The third thing is that unclear expectations are not an accident. When you don't know exactly what good looks like, you can never stop working. You're always adding more, always revising, always second-guessing, always showing up earlier and staying later because somewhere in the back of your mind, you're not sure if you've done enough. This is how workplaces extract more labor without ever asking for it directly. The ambiguity does the work for them. You police yourself. You push yourself harder because the goalpost is always moving and you can never quite reach it. Let that sink in. The lack of clarity isn't poor management in many cases, it's a feature, not a bug. The fourth thing is that your identity got tangled up in your job, and that is costing you more than you know. It happens gradually. You start defining yourself by your output. Your productivity becomes your worth. Your performance review starts to feel like a referendum on your value as a human being. And once that happens, you can't say no to more work because saying no feels like saying you don't care, you're not serious, you're not a team player. You can't take a sick day without guilt. You can't log off at a normal time without feeling like you're slacking. This is not ambition. This is conditioning, and workplaces know exactly how to exploit it. When your ego is tied to your job title, they don't need to threaten you to get more from you. You'll do it to yourself. The fifth thing is that workplace culture often rewards overwork and quietly punishes boundaries. The person who stays late gets praised. The person who works weekends gets noticed. The person who is always available, always responsive, always on, they get called dedicated. And the person who leaves at a reasonable hour, who doesn't answer emails at 10 p.m., who actually uses their vacation days, they get a reputation. Nothing is said directly. But the system communicates very clearly who it values and who it doesn't. This is not a coincidence. This is how the system works. It selects for people who will sacrifice themselves, and it calls that sacrifice commitment. The sixth thing is that recovery is not laziness. Your brain needs downtime to consolidate information, to regulate emotion, to restore focus. This is not optional. This is not a luxury. Sleep, rest, play, silence, these are not rewards for finishing your work. They are requirements for your basic cognitive function. But the modern workplace has convinced you that rest is something you have to earn. So you push through the tiredness. You work through the weekend. You skip lunch. And your performance gets worse, not better. Your creativity dries up. Your patience disappears. Your output becomes mechanical. And then you wonder why you feel so hollow. You're not hollow. You're depleted. There is a difference. Depletion can be reversed, but only if you stop treating rest like a guilty pleasure. The seventh thing is that Slack messages and email notifications are neurologically disruptive. Every ping, every notification, every quick question is an interruption that takes your brain time to recover from. Research suggests it takes roughly 20 minutes to return to deep focus after an interruption. Now multiply that by the number of messages you get in a day. You are essentially being prevented from doing your best work while simultaneously being expected to produce your best work. This is the trap. You end the day feeling like you worked hard but accomplished nothing meaningful. That feeling is accurate. You were busy. You were not focused. There is a difference, and the workplace rarely makes space for you to do the focused work that would actually make you feel good about what you do. The eighth thing is that Zoom fatigue and performative presence are real psychological drains. You've been asked, especially in the last few years, to perform being at work, to be on camera, present, visible, reachable. Not because your actual work requires it, but because presence has become a proxy for productivity. You're exhausted not just from the work, but from performing the work, from being on all day, from reading the emotional temperature of every meeting, from managing your face, your body language, your response time. That is emotional labor, and it costs something, every single day. The ninth thing is that your workplace may not be fixable, and accepting that is not defeat. Sometimes people burn out in a job, do all the right things to recover, set boundaries, communicate clearly, ask for changes, and nothing shifts. The culture stays toxic, the expectations stay impossible, the workload stays unmanageable. And in those cases, the most intelligent, most self-respecting thing you can do is leave. Not because you gave up, because you did the math. Some environments are not designed for human sustainability. They are designed for extraction. And no amount of personal development is going to turn an extractive environment into a healthy one. This is not about quitting when things get hard. This is about knowing the difference between a hard season and a broken system. The 10th thing is that your worth is not your output. This one is simple to say and genuinely hard to internalize, because the entire economy is structured around your productive value. You are worth more the more you produce. You are less valuable when you slow down, when you rest, when you struggle. But that is an economic framing, and you are not an economic unit. You are a person. And persons have inherent worth that has nothing to do with quarterly results or performance metrics or how many hours they logged last Tuesday. The moment you truly start to believe this, not just nod at it, but actually feel it in your bones, is the moment the system loses its grip on you. The 11th thing is that boundaries are not selfish. They are structural. When you say no to something, you are not being difficult. You are being honest about your capacity. Honest about what quality work actually requires. Honest about the fact that saying yes to everything is not heroic. It's a path to mediocrity at best and collapse at worst. Real professionals know what they can do well and protect that capacity fiercely. The best performers in any field don't do everything. They do the right things, with full energy, with full attention. You don't get that by saying yes to everything and staying available around the clock. The 12th thing is to reclaim your time deliberately. Start somewhere small but real. Turn off notifications after a certain hour and hold that line. Take your lunch break as an actual break, not a working lunch, not a scrolling your phone break, but a genuine pause. Use your paid time off. These aren't radical acts. They are basic human requirements dressed up as professional choices. And the more consistently you protect your time, the more you start to remember who you are outside of your job. Because that person matters. That person existed before this job and will exist after it. The 13th thing is to audit your relationship with work honestly. Ask yourself when you last felt genuinely good at something at work, not just productive, but good. Ask yourself whether the exhaustion you feel is temporary or chronic. Ask yourself whether you've been telling yourself it'll slow down soon for more than 6 months. And ask yourself, honestly, whether the life you're living right now is the one you actually want, or just the one you've been trained to accept. These are not comfortable questions, but they are necessary ones. The 14th thing is to stop waiting for permission to protect yourself. Nobody in your organization is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I think you need a break." Nobody is going to look at your schedule and say, "This is too much. Let's pull something off your plate." The system does not have that incentive. Your well-being is not a line item anyone else is responsible for. You are. And that means you have to be willing to make choices that feel uncomfortable in the short term because they are essential in the long term. That's not selfishness. That's survival. The 15th thing, and this is the one that ties all the others together, is that the story you've been told about burnout is backwards. You've been told it's a sign that you're not strong enough, not resilient enough, not tough enough for the demands of professional life. But burnout is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of sustained, excessive demand on a human system that was never designed to run this hard, this long, without rest, without meaning, without room to breathe. Burnout is not the result of your failures. It is the result of the gap between what you're being asked to give and what any human being can actually sustain. Your job can rent your time. It cannot own your life. You clock in, you do the work, you bring your expertise and your effort and your creativity, and then you go home. You go back to the parts of your life that belong to you and no one else, to the relationships that actually know you, to the interests that exist outside a job description, to the version of yourself that isn't defined by performance reviews or Slack availability or output metrics. That version of you is not a distraction from your career. It is the source of everything your career requires from you. Burnout is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that something around you is.